Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton, a podcast managed by your host Zach Ingo Finch and my co-host Gregory Elliott. But Southampton Football Club, as of about 5 minutes ago, is no longer managed by Mr. Russel Martin. Russel Martin. Greg, you went to that game. I almost had the opportunity to go to that game, but I decided to stay warm and miserable at home, considering I'm nursing a slight amount of hangover today. Shout out to my friend Sam for drinking Jameson's with me most of the day yesterday. El Sacchio 2 it turned out to be. Electric Boogaloo.
Well, look, I sent you a message maybe even before half-time. I can't remember. It's all a bit of a blur, to be honest, that said, I don't even think they'll wait till the morning. And, I mean, that's proven true.
There was noise talking around Twitter about how the board were in a meeting and this, that, and the other. They were trying to discuss what to do. And where I'm at is that considering the length of the statement, in fact, the first thing I said, because just before we started, you were like, oh, God, he's gone, quick. Have a look. And the first thing I said was, they didn't even use a picture of the corner flag. It was the Ted Bain statue.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about the game, because let's face it, what is there to
I don't
talk
want to,
about?
mate.
We got drubbed
We lost.
5-0 by Spurs.
There are some positives to take from it, right? None of the goals
Well,
we conceded were direct
none of
passing
it.
from the back.
It's all pointless, because now it's all going to be a new system. All those players that hoped to, all those players that played in the Russel Martin system and had key roles, everything's up in the air now. It could be anybody that comes back in. Bella Kotchap could get a look in, whatever.
I just hope that whoever we get in is slightly more pragmatic. Like, I understand the want to have a philosophy and a style, and I get that, and I get that that's a thing in football, and I hate it, to be honest. I mean, we've heard my Room 101 thoughts on Pep Guardiola and what he's done for football, but like, we just need. We've got players. Some of them are good. Some of them aren't.
Some of them aren't.
We should
you're right.
play to our strengths, and clearly,
it is mad.
To our philosophy wasn't it?
It is mad.
Let's put a team out and play to the strengths of that team, and not stick 11 players in positions that aren't necessarily their best. And
the idea, I know that there's a lot of talk about this idea that it's to get him a job afterwards. I genuinely don't think that is what it is. I genuinely think that he has gone out of his way and is out of his depth. And shout out to my other friend James Peach, who I constantly talk about this situation. He texted me about when we were about 3-0 down, like, how you doing, buddy? Knowing full well that I was miserable as sin. But he said from the start, and something I've kind of agreed with him on and made my point a few times, that it feels like we came up too early. But that statement reads as if the board seemed kind of baffled that we seem to just suck as bad as we do. But two 5-0 losses
at miserable as well. Like, it was the worst I've ever seen us play.
So here's my notes pre-match. Sulemana was a weird choice, but fair enough. We're trying to go for a 4 at the back. Kind of understand, but less than ideal. A bit weird that they're bang on about Tall Paul for ages and not play him. Armstrong playing as our only striker hasn't worked out so far, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah,
and my first note,
Diblett went through the middle. So.
Yeah, my first note was 1 minute in, not even 1 minute in, and we're 1-0 down, James Maddison. 11 minutes, booze all around, Son scores 2. We've been shocking. What else is there to say? 3 goals. And then obviously Sulemana, the sacrificial lamb to the slaughter, gets taken off. Nathan Wood gets brought on because we have to go. Yeah, because we have to go back to that. Apparently, the way we've played over and over, because we're already 3-0 down. What should we change? And I said, my note there is just I'm a bit shell shocked, and then it's just Spurs again, and then fans going home. Literally, don't blame them. And then 5-0 down. Martin went down the tunnel before he even. And it's a really sad reign to a man that brought me one of the best footballing days of my life, right? Like that day at Wembley was incredible. We went on an unbeaten streak, but to come up and just sit in.
I really like Russel Martin,
he's a nice guy. He's likable, at least in my opinion.
He was very likable and put out the right attitude. He really unified our players last season in a way that we hadn't seen for a long time. We'd been a very split dressing room, a very split fan base, and he really brought everyone together. And he was a real people person from the outside looking in, and really brought everything together nicely. And it's a shame to see him go out on such a whimper, but it can't surprise anyone.
you can't keep shooting yourself in the foot as much as we have. And like him talking about how he's really rigid to his philosophy, and him, like it might be that Big Ange today, he got that 5-0 win, but that's just papering over Spurs cracks. They're going to go on to have the same problem with sticking to a specific rigid philosophy. And you're right. Look at Guardiola, stuck to a rigid philosophy, and since they beat us, they've won like a game. Go 2-1 down today. He says he doesn't even know what to do because for once in his life, Plan A is not going right, and he doesn't know what to do with Plan B. And that's the problem with Russel Martin is that Plan A never worked. Plan B, I'm still a little bit shocked. Like I know I was shell shocked by the result, and I'm shell shocked that he's gone because we've been banging on for ages. But it really does feel like that Chelsea game was the turn, and they've obviously his cryptic comments in the week about how he needs more, like sort of he was talking about how he needs to get more results to get money, and that's basically them saying you need to actually start putting points on the board, or why would we back you? And so that already is a bit like, well, that's very different to the few weeks ago when you had the backing of the board. But it's just weird that it's taken so long, and it's like they genuinely thought. Have they been paying attention? Did they genuinely think we'd start getting results? Because I don't know what they thought the turning point would be.
I have no idea. I really don't know. And do you know the
So
upsetting thing
weird.
is, like, there was a real positive vibe around St Mary's before the
Mm.
game. I know that there were some people out with their banners, but actually the atmosphere was good. We were singing, we were happy. We had the big banner get him away, so I couldn't see anything. I had to load up BT Sport on my phone so I could see the players go out of the tunnel. But it was a positive atmosphere, and it lasted 35 seconds. And
But yeah, and
then
like
after that, it was baffling. Like Sun was consistently left unmarked, and I don't know. I don't know if that's down to tactics or down to bad play.
you
But
just wondered like what are you doing for the week training? And the problem is like as much as it is Russell Martin's, and I think that another telling comment, which to be honest, I don't really understand why Ramsdale agreed to be a pundit. When at a game he probably should have been playing, and he'll probably be playing this week coming up, because some of the sound bits you've probably not heard in even. But like one of the things he was asked about was like sort of he's like, yeah, no, I kind of feel sorry. I kind of feel sorry for Russ, and but I feel for the fans more. But then you've also had Armstrong saying like confidence comes from wins, and we're not that's not we're giving everything. But he's talking about there's a lot of talk if you read between the lines of like we're playing the system the best we can. And it's that
yeah,
very much to me is okay. So they're all smiles when they come in, but realistically they know that something they're not going to be able to play this way and win. And the thing is if you've lost all confidence in yourself at that point, do you genuinely think that you're going to go on to win a game? And like I know that you were a lot more positive from the start. I think I was positive in the fact that I said we would maybe score because we've not. It feels like an eternity since we've scored, and we will talk about the game eventually. And there were a couple of chances, mainly Diblin. He had some cracking strikes. They just didn't play off right.
yeah.
But
But do you know why that happened, Zach? It's because it was
it's
abundantly clear from half time that Russell
Spurs were
Martin
just.
was getting the sack. And so Tyler Diblin stopped playing Russell Martin's style of football, dribbled the ball and had a shot. Like,
You're right. So let me give you the stats for today. So BBC News' headline was "Sparkling Spurs thrash feeble Southampton." And the stats were goals scored, Tottenham 5, us 0. Expected goals, I know we hate XG, but it's still a thing. We had 0.68, which checks out
what does that mean?
at nothing. But they had 2.61, so that's a lot of a bigger number than ours. We had
It's a
9 shots to
made
their
up.
18. Bear in mind that only 7 of those came in the second half. 3 shots on target to their 9. 15 touches in the opposition box to their 28. Our possession percentage, that's why he really got the sack, mate, because it was 41% today. We
Oh,
weren't at
that's
80.
the
That's
main
just
possession, isn't it? That's the main
yep.
statistic that we care about.
And but we had only 8 fouls committed, and we didn't do our standard thing of bravery and have a. We keep making jokes, but because it is like we have become the cosmic joke, and I think that there's a lot of stuff this week that's come out about Sports Republic and our owners that we haven't even touched on, and we were almost thinking about doing a wild card for it. We might still talk about it. About today they opened up the Dell pub, and I was like, oh, that's exciting. Saw some of the beers on tap and thought that was cool. These influencers coming out and talking about it with the CEO of Sports Republic, and then you've got And then you've got like you telling me it's a tenner to get in. And I'm like, I'm sorry. you are already being fleeced for bolt-ons and Matchday and this, that, and the other. And now to drink at your local football club pub, because let's shut down all the boozers on the outside of it, you now need to pay a tenner to get through the doors.
That's
like
right,
it's
mate. First pint
2004.
free.
Oh,
So-
perfect. So there you go. It's only £7-8 a pint. So, and the thing is that they have suddenly realised that, well, if we go down to the Championship and we do so bad, we go down again, and we have to start paying millions of pound compensation here and there. All of their wonderful business plans that they have aren't going to go anywhere. And I wouldn't be surprised if realistically the under-21s boss that's coming in is in charge to the end of the season, and then they bring another manager in, because then like I don't know
maybe
how
I don't know.
fan pressure goes. Like,
I think that okay.
what's your thoughts? Because I haven't even had time to process it, and some of the names that have been thrown out there, like people are genuinely thinking we're getting in Ten Hag. Ten Hag, who spent like a
I can
couple
tell you,
hundred.
Zach, that looking at the live betting odds for the next Southampton manager, that the current favourite to take over at St Mary's is Rafa Benitez.
Oh, mate, Rafa Benitez. Oh, like, I'm sorry, but like we're talking about how we're barely able to
Hang on,
afford
that's
like
not even as funny because
just
seventh favourite at not particularly long 15-2 shot is Ralph Hasenhüttl.
that is very Southampton. I have seen let's let Adam Lallana take charge until forever, which bear
Yeah.
in mind he's still technically a player, not that we see him on the pitch. And then one of the other things I saw was let's get Danny Rollback, who was Hasenhüttl's assistant.
Oh,
Which is
right.
like, yeah, no, you're right. Let's get another Championship manager and let's bring him back for the nostalgia factor.
Right,
Why don't we bring back Sellers?
I've got thoughts,
What
and
are your
I'm going
thoughts,
to
mate? Let's
cover
go.
it. But first, we
Oh, we
should
got
have
ad breaks,
a
haven't
break.
we? Oh, goodness gracious me. I forgot this. This is the same conversation, by the way, listeners, that me and Greg would be having if you weren't here. So let's pivot. Lovely to word from our partners over at Zencaster.
Yeah, so here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencaster came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. Okay, so I've got some thoughts, right?
What are your
I
thoughts, my
think
friend?
it's abundantly clear that we're probably not going to be getting in a world-class manager for a number of reasons, right? Okay, there are several very sensible reasons that that's not going to be the case. Because
Yes, that's
above all
correct.
else, why would Rafa Benitez come and manage Southampton?
This is the
Guaranteed
who wants
championship
to come
next
here?
But that's the thing, right? So here's what I think the only correct answer is that isn't completely defeatist, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't come out and say we're relegated, we're giving up for the season, because that's ridiculous. But you take on a manager, and it'll probably be a young, unheard of manager, and there'll probably be some noise about that, and that's
It's
fair.
fine.
I understand it, but you make it clear from the outset that it's a project. You're not expecting them to turn it around overnight and suddenly stay in the Premier League, because, like, unless you bring in, I don't know, Albus Dumbledore in to come and work his magic, like, what is realistically keeping us in the Premier League? I just don't see it, right? And what I want to see is someone come in and give it a go and try and get points and win games, but with the sight to build for next season, right?
Yeah.
I think it needs to be made clear to the we're going to have players who are with us who aren't going to stay with us if we go down to the Championship, and I think just they might be the best players on the pitch for us, but bin them off. Build for the future. Let's get some of our youth and some of our fringe signings up to speed, so that when we get to the Championship next year, we can hit the ground running. We won't have to do a full rebuild. We'll know where we're at. We'll have assessed it beforehand. We'll have some sort of system, hopefully with some pragmatism involved, and we'll just go and win the championship comfortably because we have taken that time to build. We won't have that awkward teething period at the start. We'll know where we're at and go from there. That's the hope, right? And that's the sort of image that Sports Republic are pushing, that they're going to try to go for, is that it's their long-term commitment and their long-term plan. It's either that or what? Get Big Sam in and try and stick it out to the end of the season.
I have seen some suggestions of Big Sam Allardyce, which is nuts to me. But this is lovely. But my problem is that they need to get that manager sooner rather than later. And I'm hoping, by the sounds of it, if this was so well prepared, they've got targets in mind, and hopefully they can do something about it. My big problem is that they'll end up doing what they did with Ruben Sellis, and we end up having a couple months now with this under 21 coach, and then we go into the championship, and then it's a new manager, and we will almost play the same fiddle, the same song as we did last time round. But the problem is that for the cash flow for their projects, they're going to need to. They can't yo-yo a year in, year out, because one day they're going to slip up, and you're going to end up with massive financial problems, and then they'll sell up, and maybe we get bought out by some conglomeration that has billions of pounds, and we can buy everyone that we want under the sun. But you're right, the pragmatism and realism of how the rest of the season is now is going to kick in and take over soon.
Yeah, you don't want to see them give up. Like, no one wants that.
Not at all.
To be on the beach for the rest of the season, but you have to be realistic, and we can't throw everything and the kitchen sink at it, or it will ruin our club.
Yeah, and this is the thing is that ultimately that isn't going to be what happens, and even some of the most influential voices in the sort of Saints community will say the same. And it's sad that it's ended up like this for Russel Martin. One of the points I want to make is that for me it's going to be a very interesting time now for the players that are still here. There are players who are absolutely incredible. There are people that still work. Carl Walker-Peters still works at 5-0 down. He will get a move in January at the end of the season, and it will be well deserved with a pat on the back.
Yeah, I've got not a bad word to say
at all.
He wasn't great in the first half, but he still ran, and in the second half he was one of, I think, 4 players I can name that really gave it.
I've got the ones that I wrote down. I say I wrote them down. I didn't. I text you because I stopped making notes most of the second half, because what was the point? we haven't conceded more. That's a win. Fernandes, Dibbling, Carl Walker-Peters, and ironically Manning before he went off, who will probably be slightly upset, because I have a feeling now that there are a lot of players that they maybe, if they'd put in, I don't want to criticise them too much, but also they are the reason that they haven't been able to score the goals. They haven't been able to be as good to fit the system. It can't all be down to the manager. There will be players now who have been crucial parts of our season that might not be, and might end up moving on. There will be loans that are probably terminated. But what I mean is that it is a time now. There are opportunities for everyone in abundance.
Yeah.
So now is going to be the time where, no matter what happens, hopefully we can start to move something towards something more positive. Our Tactics Tuesdays episodes, Greg, will actually have something to talk about, because we're not going to play exactly the same way week in, week out with there's pretty much the same lineup, and we're going to have all of the same mistakes. It's just sad that it had to go like this, I think, is where everyone's like no one wanted it to be like this.
My main highlight of the night to take away is how fantastic the fans that stayed were in the second half.
Oh yeah, 100%.
A great time singing away all the old songs and all the old players.
Yeah, I could hear
even players who put the shift in on the pitch, right? Because we were singing for Tyler Diblin and Matty Fernandes and Joe Aribo, and Walker Peters, because they played, they're in, and we had a little Zombie Nation for the offside goal.
Enjoyed all of that. And that's the thing.
The actual highlight of the entire night was actually when they do the halftime relay. Obviously, the kids go and run on, and both the teams, the white and the red team, scored past Mary Saint in the goal in front of the Northam. At which point, the entire Northam burst into, "We scored a goal." It was beautiful, because you've got to laugh. If you didn't laugh, you'd cry.
That's the thing, right? Like there is a certain percentage of the fan base that did, and their anger was shown, and they were annoyed at the fans for not being angry. But also, you're a paying season ticket holder, mate. You go with your kids. You don't want to be miserable and visceral about everything in
No,
life because,
in the
to
first,
be
we
honest,
got
it's
the
character building.
negativity out of the way in the first half, right? Like there were some sacked in the morning charts, and
Yeah, we heard them all too.
your football's not great, I think is what they were saying. We're not a huge fan of your football, Russell
Mate,
Martin.
it's not even that. So what you'll get to enjoy when you watch the highlights back as well
I don't
is
think
that
I'll be
it's
watching it back, Zach. I'll be honest with you, mate. It's not on my to-do list.
some of the hot, like, not hot micing, but some of the things that were being picked up by the microphones in the background was just absolutely incredible from the sort of fans, and especially the fans behind Russell Martin. The asking him to give you a wave, and then that is going to be the last real interaction he's had with the fans, and that's mental.
Asking him to wave and
just
then booing him when he waved is
mugging him off completely.
diabolical.
And it's sad because like one of the things. So a quote that I wrote down that really got on my wick was some of the commentary talking about how, like, short memories, those fans. You got us up at Wembley, and I'm like, no, it's not short memories. It's been since like September. We've been watching this week in, week out. We have this podcast because he managed to get us to the Premier League. Like, I'll always be thankful for that as well, because we have a great time doing this. But it's one of those things that, like, what do you, how much goodwill do you think he had in the bank? And like, I genuinely thought that Sports Republic wouldn't do anything until that Chelsea game, because as soon as the stadium started to turn and they were all there, and you could tell at that point they were like, oh no, because it affects money flow. Once the cash flow becomes a problem, you don't want to be humiliated. Like, we don't want to be the team that has the lowest points in the Premier League.
I'll
We
tell you,
already
Zach,
now.
that I turned around at the start of the second half, and I was talking to my son, who was pretty despondent at this point. It's a late night on a Sunday night, and we were losing 5-0. And I said, look, mate, it's all right. We could have the second half of dreams and come back and draw 5-5. At which point the head steward, who happened to be stood next to me, went, do I need to pull you out for drug testing? So
It is, yeah. There you go. Here's some of the other stats I wrote down when this was still a podcast about the post match. It was 30 seconds is the earliest goal Southampton have conceded in the Premier League games. Stoke goalkeeper Asmir Begovic scored after 13 seconds
brilliant.
in November 2013. And yeah, just general other bits and pieces. It's just, I thought I had
Do you
more
know
stats
what?
than that. That was
Right.
a long
Okay.
one.
Let's have a message for our partners, and then let's have a little talk about the game, because I've got some opinions as well.
That's fine. We should probably maybe talk about the game as well and see
Yeah.
where we go from here. So, the Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts. Right, so I guess, mate, we should probably talk about the fact that there was also a game of football in amongst the fact that Russell Martin got fired, and was probably the nail in the coffin. Because if we got out and drawn, it would have been different.
We're very lucky, right, that we've been assisted here, because we've only actually got 45 minutes of football to talk about, because nothing happened in the second half, right? Let's be
You're
very
right.
clear. Like, we had a couple of shots, they had a couple of shots, but they took their foot off the gas, and we continued to knock it around at the back.
No.
To ironic cheers of Ole, despite being 5-0 down. We won the second half 0-0. That's fine. But right, let's if we break it down, okay. So the first goal, we clearly just hadn't switched on, and
No,
Spurs
not
did
even
hit
slightly.
us quickly. It was like a knife through butter, bang, game done. And that was game done, because at that point, heads dropped. Okay, the players' heads completely gone. The second goal, they got very lucky. It took a deflection on the way through to a completely unmarked Son, and he shouldn't have been unmarked. If he wasn't unmarked, he probably didn't score. The fifth goal, right on half time, was an unbelievable piece of skill by James Maddison. He just had all of our defenders on toast. Nothing Alex McCarthy could have done about that. And the other two, I think, were tap-ins. So, yeah.
So obviously, well, I guess we'll try and talk about it tomorrow a little bit more. But obviously, we changed the shape to be more aggressive, and then it turns out that we just forgot to defend. Is that what happened? Do you reckon? Or
I don't know. I
it's
just
so
don't know.
weird. It just
Look,
feels like at this point, like they spent the whole week trying to do this like aggressive training, went 1-0 down, and just went, I just can't be bothered anymore.
they
And
did
like,
look, credit where credit's due. Tottenham pressed us, and that was the downfall of the system. Done.
well, it's always been
Because,
the downfall of the system.
but like Harwood Bellis did not have a great game. Didn't cover himself in glory. I don't think he managed to pass it to a Southampton player that wasn't Jan Bednarak at any point during the game. And 3 or 4 times the ball came out to him in the same sort of way that we play out from the back, and that's fine. He tried the little lifted ball into the midfield, and every single time it went to a Spurs player. But in his defence, when he was in that position, in 10 yards from his own goal, looking up, there were just no options. Everyone was completely covered. There's nowhere he could have put the ball where a Saints player was getting it. The midfield were just wandered off somewhere. And you're right, maybe it was because we were trying to play this aggressive football, but there were just no options for him. And so what could he do? And then McCarthy started from the start. It has to be said that McCarthy did not really play it short at all. He kept kicking it out, but as we've discussed before, Alex McCarthy's distribution is shocking. So, what
Yeah,
were
no,
we
you're right.
expecting? Like, like there was a time recently where Alex McCarthy's long goal kicks were so bad that Flynn Downs was taking goal kicks. So,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
it was poor, and we were poor. We couldn't get out because there were no balls to play forward, and every time they ran at us, they looked like they were going to score. And if they were better at shooting than they were, it could have been six
I
by
think
30 minutes.
I almost took a little bit of umbrage when Chris in the crossover episode said to us, "Oh, well, you're Southampton. We should be beating you easy 3-0." And I was like, "Oh, come on, don't do that. Like that's what we've been written off before." And
And then you watched the first
genuinely,
quarter or an hour of the game and went,
yeah.
"Oh,
And then you
3-0
just
would
went,
be a touch."
Do you know what? I pulled my hands up. Like I just don't know where it all went wrong. And this is why I said, like, is it because we've come up too early? The system's definitely played a part. Do we just not have good enough players? Recruiting a bunch of free agents and people from relegated sides probably wasn't the wisest decision.
Well, look, the fact of the
I'm
matter is
hoping
that
that it's just lessons learned.
we struggled with mentality all year, and
Mm.
it was always the way. And and as a system and as a team, we struggle when we're getting pressed, and that is how it has been the entire season. And so Spurs had the perfect formula: score in the first 30 seconds and then press for the next 10 minutes, and that's it. Game over. You don't have to do anything for the rest
At
of the
least
game
it wasn't
because it's out
9,
of
mate.
reach. Yeah,
3-9 would have been
we shut up
woeful.
shop in the second half, but also Spurs stopped trying
Well, they
quite so
gave
hard.
they gave a teenager a debut. They had at one point sort of about 4 teenagers on the pitch.
Yeah.
It's I think it is not even really a legacy. It is a really upsetting way to end what would have been a fantastic journey
Yeah.
had Russell Martin been more pragmatic, and maybe he'll learn that going into his next job. And hopefully, it's a lesson for Sports Republic as to, well, maybe when they gave it to Jones and then sacked Jones, maybe that was too early, and maybe with Russell Martin they've stayed on a lot later. And hopefully, as
That's
an
the real
ownership group,
concern, right? Is
yeah,
because for every time we've gone and found an unknown manager that's been a Koeman or a Pochettino, we've also had a Puel or flipping
Puel wasn't
Nathan
even that
Jones.
bad. Pellegrino was the one you're thinking about, who
Pellegrino,
bought
yeah,
who
yeah,
bought Corello. I can't even remember if that's his name. The striker that never scored for us,
yeah.
and this is the problem. But obviously, we have a new ownership now, and the only thing you can hope is that they're learning. And the problem is, if our club is meant to be the crux of this multi-ownership backbone of their footballing empire, you can put up nice fancy bars. You can try and make Southampton not smell of pee as much as you want. The problem with all of that is if you do not have good football to watch and a football club that is doing well, none
Mm.
of it's going to matter because no one's going to go and spend 50, 60 quid on a match day if you're playing Leighton Orient. No offense to Leighton Orient, in League One. And like, there is a real possibility that if they don't start to sort out the football inside of things a lot better going forward, that is where we're going to end up. Mismanagement through clubs' finances has resulted in many titans falling, and we will not be the first or the last if they don't start to figure out what to do.
And
And
it has
like,
to be
it's
said
just,
that a lot of goodwill towards these extra penny pinching ways is running out, right?
yeah, because
Because
you
we
you
haven't talked
can't.
about it yet, but £22.50 for an FA Cup third round game against Swansea, that's a joke. Like,
There's a lot. They, going 27 games unbeaten last season and having all of that goodwill in the bank. Like, as far as we're back to even, I wouldn't even say we're back to square one. We're now like -10. Like, this is at least when we didn't know relegation was confirmed the season we went down last until the end of the day, right? Like, we still had James Ward-Prowse scoring free kicks. Sellers kind of was a bit of a wet blanket after we had Nathan Jones. We were all just happy that Nathan Jones was gone, to be honest, by that point. But there's just something about this that, like, before it gets any worse, as you said, I'm really hoping that, similar to you, that there is something to look forward to, whether that be a
yeah,
project, a good new manager, new personnel. There'll be a mass exodus, I feel, in January. And if we have to bring back an Adozi, or we bring back Shea Charles, you bring back some of the players we put out on loan because we thought they weren't ready for the Premier League. But all the players we bought in to be ready for the Premier League, a lot of them haven't done anything anyway. You kind of, some of those players that didn't work out at ours, like Sulemana, like, I don't have any ill will against him. I feel sorry for him this evening. I don't think that was his fault at all.
not
But
even a little bit.
also,
And to his credit, he was only on the pitch 15 minutes, and
how can
actually,
you?
he got forward going and got on the ball 2 or 3 times in that period of time.
Yeah, and
So,
like, this is my point: is that some of those players are not going to want to play for us anymore. And do you know what? Fair enough. And essentially, it's just what we don't want to be doing is having this same discussion every 2 years. And that's my big fear: is that, are we going to become this yo-yo club that goes up and down? Because we were pretty established. We had ownership nightmares up the wazoo, but since Sports Republic have taken over, they've relegated us, got us straight back up, and by the looks of it, are relegating us again.
let's
And
hope they've
now it's
learned
not going
from
to
that,
be.
right?
But
Let's
this is
hope
this is the
they know
thing,
the
though.
gap now. So, like, they probably thought, oh yeah, we'll buy these players and they'll come good. But this is the learning experience, right? This is the learning curve. So
But
this is their
Russ is now
opportunity to learn
gone.
from that.
Russ is now gone. Like, not just their scapegoat, because to be fair, a lot of it is to do with Russell Martin's football, especially with the way that he's just not shifted. But the problem is now is that, like when you've got somebody in your workplace, and if there's somebody that's a pain, and everyone knows that that person's going to go, once they're gone, the focus then shifts across to the next person. And in
Mm,
this regards, now that the manager is gone and all that noise about Russ Ball's gone, if all of a sudden things still continue to collapse, people then will look up at the owners, and
100%.
they're trying to oh, charge lots of money and do all this kind of stuff. And yeah, they're investing, but like, I'm not going to lie, I would rather us have a striker that scores goals and watch good football than have an extra type of beer at the fan zone. And like, now they're starting to realize that, because I think, well, I'm hoping they're realizing it. But all you can hope for, and I know that it's a lesson where people will call me cynical, but all you can hope for is that this is a lesson learned, and we will go on to do something better. We will get a manager that goes on to try and build something, and that if we decide to get into a position where we're losing non-stop, we don't just try and do the same thing to fix it. Who knows? It's going to be a ride, mate. It
Who
feels
do you
like it's
want
a new
in from
season.
the list of betting odds candidates, or if it's someone off the list? Who do you want? Who do you
Not a
think?
single one. I want a random coach from the Belgian league that's going to come in and do a
Yeah,
Pochettino. Because every single one of those people talk about, oh, we need to get David Moyes. We're not going to we're not going to pay the money. And also, why are they going to want to be here?
yeah,
It is going to be somebody who wants to take on a project, right? Remember when we almost got Jesse Marsh, and then he looked at the project and went, nah, mate.
yeah.
And you're telling me that people like Ten Hag and we're not going to get in a last ditch relegation hoofball manager either.
No,
But it also depends on what their next steps are. If they do decide to get in like a Big Sam, you suddenly realise, oh, maybe they cared far more about relegation than they let on, and they only suddenly, it's like they've only just started watching us the last couple of weeks. I don't really have a
and that's
preference. I would
possible,
just
right?
like to something. Yeah, exactly. I would like to see something slightly new, slightly more exciting, but also something realistic, where I don't expect them to come in and get 5 wins on the bounce. It's
No,
just not going to
it's
happen.
not going to
But
happen, is it?
it needs to be, I would like to see fringe players given a chance. I would like to see what a new manager can do with this set of players that, at the very least, Russel Martin will leave a group of players who are quite together, at least most of them. Some of them, obviously, probably not. It's probably going to be popping champagne that he's gone, but there'll be others that are going to be sad because they've lost basically somebody that they clearly have a lot of respect for. And it will be interesting to see that it's not as disjointed as it was the last relegation season, but someone can hopefully come in and take that. That's my hope. That's all I've got to hope for. I don't know. Of the people on the list of betting that you've got in front of you, Greg, who would you like as manager? Or would you also say, I would just prefer somebody I've never met before?
No, I think you're right. I think that I think that an unknown is probably our best bet. There are lots of funny answers, right? Like imagine Neil Warnock coming in. What
half
a character that would be.
the players would go home crying, mate. Like, and that's
What we need,
because
mate. We've
yeah,
said
but that's
before that maybe Russell Martin was too nice, but you're right. Maybe that might be a stretch.
yeah, but
I don't know. Carlos Corbrand's on the list. I really like him. I mean, as you know, I've got
got some
family
ties
links to
to
West
West
Brom,
Brom.
so I'm quite familiar with his style of
But
football
this
and
is
the
the
way
other
he
thing:
plays.
is
I like him. He's pragmatic.
do you reckon they'll do what they've done before and upset all the fans again and get another Championship manager
Yeah, I do.
who doesn't know how to keep us in the Premier League and has no experience in the
I
Premier
mean,
League?
I don't know if he would come to us even if we offered it to him because I think
No,
he turned
not
down
at
West
all.
Ham in the summer. So
But I find it's hard to read in between the lines of a lot of the statement, right? That's the other thing
there
for
are
me
lots of
is
names on this list I definitely don't want. That's for sure. And there are lots of names on this I don't think that will ever come to us. Graham Potter. Why? If we were going to get Graham Potter, that would have happened long ago. I think it's
we're
not.
not just yeah. There's a lot of people we would have to pay top money to get in on the gamble that we stay up this season. Considering we already would need to break records to stay up, you are talking about a gamble that, in my opinion, they are not willing to make. So if that's a gamble they're not willing to make, we need to start being realistic about who we're going to actually get
Yeah,
in. And
like I
I just
say, we need
genuinely
to,
think it's
and
going to be
that's
someone
why I
we don't
think
know.
it'll be someone like or someone like Carlos Corberán from the Championship because it's going to be a manager that is willing to accept that we're effectively down. All right.
But Greg, either way, mate, it's going to be a ride. And like, it's going to be, regardless of what happens now.
We're not going to be short of things to talk about, are we?
Yeah. Well, number one, that, but it's I think it's just the fact that it's like, it's not even the fact that it's like a new hope. It's the fact that it's new, it's something injected into the club that will be different. And that's what I said like the other week. There's a clip of me knocking around, which is like, change is needed. And I don't care where it is. And it turns out we wondered, will it be on the pitch? Will it be in personnel in January? Turns out the first part of it is the manager. And now let's see what happens. And
Yeah.
maybe the under 21s coach will do an amazing job and we stay up off him and we have a new unknown coach that then comes through.
I'll
Who
take it.
knows?
I'll be happy either way. Let's get past Liverpool first, I guess.
Oh,
So our annual trip to Wembley, mate.
your kids have been spoiled. Right. I think that's going to tie it to a close on this blockbuster long episode that's almost at 40 minutes because we've had a lot to talk about. And I know that we've probably
Go to bed,
given,
mate. We've got
I
work
feel like
tomorrow.
we've given a couple of contradictory opinions. And that's fine because there's a lot of emotions running through us. And
Yeah.
it's just been a bit, I guess we'll see what tomorrow brings. But either way, it's a new dawn. And for me, it's, thank you for everything you've done, Russell. Good luck in your next championship job.
Yeah.
Wherever it is you go.
Yeah,
Probably
I genuinely have no ill feeling
no,
towards Russell
same.
Martin, but also I'm really glad he's gone.
Yeah,
So
because
it's really a strange feeling to have.
it's not as celebratory of when Nathan Jones went off with his pickup truck into the hills of Wales with a PE teacher at his back.
Yeah.
It's going to be Russell Martin taking a few months off with Lucy Pinder on the beach, isn't it? So happy days for him. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to have a lot to talk about. We're going to have a lot to look forward to. We might all be mad. I can't wait for next season. All of the fans putting up pictures of King Russell, being like, "I just wish he was back," like they were doing with Hassan Hootel a couple of weeks ago.
I'm looking forward to having a crossover episode where the first question we're asked is, "Do you think Martin will get the sack then?"
You're right. We should just start. It's like having like those A4 sheets of paper. Like here's our automatic response for what we think. Who knows? Yeah, it's gonna be exciting, and I'm looking forward to enjoying the rest of this ride, of the rest of whatever this season brings. And it might be scary, it might be bad, it might be good, it might be all of those things. And either
Now,
way, me and
we've
you will
got
get a chat about it,
3
mate. So
days to brace ourselves until our next game. So
at least we got a bit of time. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Thank you for listening to the mad ramblings of two men. One who is tired because he's hungover. One who is tired because he's had to spend 90 minutes in St Mary's watching.
Let's be honest, I was already
nuts game of
salty that
football.
it started at 7 o'clock on a Sunday before the game even kicked off. I was fuming.
You are very correct, but at least you had a nice time in the fan zone.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. Join us tomorrow. I guess we'll try and talk about tactics, but it's going to be difficult because we have no idea what the tactics are for our next couple of games. But then gives us a chance to talk about the players who we think will come in, who we don't think will come in. I get to mention Bella Kotchap again, and Greg will be annoyed about it. we're gonna have a good time. So
Glass, isn't he?
we're gonna have so we're obviously all over the social media. There'll probably be a couple of clips knocking around tomorrow morning. We're on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, anywhere, any TikTok, obviously, anywhere you find content about football, we usually try to have a presence.
And let us know, who do you want to see as the next manager of
who
Saints?
who do you think will be? Nothing is too far fetched. Because let's face it, it's a time for change and wonder. And I guess with that note, we will see you in the next one.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.